impose a fee or a charge on the account for paying that over the limit transaction. So, and Chase is good at that too, where you can actually set it up to where, you can agree to where they'll overdraft or pay any amount or whatever. You just got to know how to repay back the loan or whatever, you know what I'm saying, if that be the case. All right. So it says method of election. A card issuer may permit a consumer to consent to the card issuer payment of an over-the-limit transaction in writing, orally, or electronically at the card issuer's option. The card issuer must also permit the consumer to revoke his or her consent using the same methods available to the consumer for providing consent. Time and placement of notices, initial notice, general. The notice required by paragraph B1 of this section shall be provided prior to the assessment of any over the limit or charge on the consumer's account. Oral or electronic consent if the consumer consents to the card issuer's payment of an over the limit transaction by oral or electronic means. The card issuer must provide the notice required by paragraph B1 of this section immediately prior to obtaining the consent. Now, the confirmation of the opt-in, so they gotta, it's just basically talking about, you can actually set it up to where you can allow them to allow your account to overdraft if that's what you want. Most people don't do it because they don't know how to pay back these loans with a simple promise. You know what I'm saying? A promise to pay back the loan. It's something that simple. It's so hard for some people, and I get it. When it's that hard, then it keeps you from being able to have certain benefits and things that you're entitled to, because let me see. All right, so this is the internet part dealing with the posting of credit card agreements and things like that, but I don't want to go past this. Like, this is a lot of good information, but I ain't gonna read it because it ain't got nothing to do with what I'm trying to show you. Well, it does, but it doesn't. All right, because all agreements are card holder agreements, because you're holding a credit card whether you know it or not. You just ain't looking at it as a credit card. So the government-wide card that everybody uses is known as a purchase card, right? So it's the electronic funds transfer device that everybody uses. So in the United States EFT worldwide purchase card. All right, so they even got like what they call they even got a program for it, right? A purchase program for like the purchase card. All right, but United States EFT Act.
According to Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, the Electronic Fund Transfer Act of 1978 is intended to protect individual consumers and.
All right, so this act was created for the consumers, right? To protect you from, all the unlawful practices and stuff against everything, but it goes along with depository insurance. So a lot of people never really took time to really read the EFT Act. Well, we're going to go over a few things real quick, right? In the definitions, it says that the term accepted credit card or other means of access. So this is how you access the account, okay? is with the card. All right. Now, most people don't understand that because they never read the act. The term accepted credit card or other means of asset means a card, a code, or other means of access to a consumer account for the purposes of initiating electronic funds transfers. All right. When the person to whom such card or other means of access was issued has requested and received and has signed or used or authorized another to use such card or other means of access for the purposes of transferring money between accounts or obtaining money, property, or other labor or services. So that's the whole purpose in you having the card, is to authorize other people to use it or to acquire labor, property, or other services with the card. Now, the term account means a demand deposit. See, your account, you're supposed to demand payment against it, right? Or a savings deposit or other asset account, right? Any account that can hold documents, checks, drafts, money orders, that's an asset account, or other than an occasional or an incidental credit balance and an open-end credit plan as defined in section 103 of this act. So your bank account is more than just something that just hold money in it, you know, like your what they call it, your Cash App and all these other accounts that you got, these depository accounts that you got, right? It says it's described in Regulation B, established primarily for personal, family, or household purposes, right? But such term does not include an account held by a financial institution pursuant to a bona fide trust agreement. So, all right, so this demand account that it's talking about is talking about an account that's created for somebody's household benefit, right? Now, as the board is the board of the governors of the Federal Reserve, and the term bureau is the Bureau of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, right? Which is also in connection with, if you notice how they connected with the board of the Federal Reserve, they like connected. All right, so the business day means the day on which the officer of the consumer financial institution involved in the electronic funds transfer are open to the public. So whenever the bank is open to the public, right, for carrying on substantially all of his business, right? Whenever I can do transfers or whatever. Now, the consumer means a natural person. Now, a natural person is talking about a natural corporation. Don't get it twisted. The term electronic funds transfer means any transfer of funds other than a transaction originated by check or draft. So when they tell you insufficient funds, you got to bust them upside the head. Wait a minute. According to the EFT Act, an electronic funds transfer, an EFT isn't a transaction that is not involving any type of check or draft, right? Or similar paper instrument, which is initiated through an electronic terminal, phone, telephonic instrument, or computer or magnetic tape, so as to order, instruct, or authorize a financial institution to debit or credit. It didn't say withdraw shit. So I want you to get it. To debit or credit. So whenever you're using your debit card, remember, when you're doing an EFT, when they charging you to do the remember that it has nothing to do with withdrawal. You can withdraw on your own. I don't want you to get these type of transactions mixed up. Anytime you're doing an EFT and you're authorizing a third party to do the transaction, it's either a debit or it's going to be a credit to that account. Get that understood. Such terms include direct deposit or withdrawals of funds and transfers initiated by telephone, such terms do not include. So, and you have to make sure you specify, because you don't want them to do a withdrawal of funds out of your account and mistake your EFT for something else that it wasn't. All right. Such terms do not include any check guarantee or authorization service which does not directly result to a debit or a credit to the consumer's account. Any transfer of funds other than those processed by automated clearinghouse made by a financial institution on behalf of consumer by means of a service that the funds held at either a Federal Reserve Bank or other depository institution, and which is not designated primarily to transfer funds on behalf of the consumer. Any transaction any transaction, the primary purpose of which is the purchase of sales of securities or commodities through a broker registered or regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission, and any automatic transfer from a savings account to a demand deposit account pursuant to an agreement between the consumer and the financial institution for the purposes of covering an overdraft or maintaining an agreed upon minimum balance in the consumer's demand deposit account, or any transfer of funds which is initiated by telephone conversation between the consumer and an officer or employee of a financial institution which is not pursuant to the percentage plan and under which periodic or reoccurring transfers are not contemplated as determined in the regulations of the Bureau. And the term electronic terminal means an electronic device other than a telephone operated by a consumer through a consumer, through which a consumer may initiate electronic funds transfer. Such term includes but not limited to the point of sale terminal, automated teller machine, and a cash dispensing machine. So a EFT, like most people don't get it. Like when you're doing an EFT, you should be able to just call like any third party on the phone, say if it's T-Mobile, say if it's your gas company, or if it's your water company. You should be able to call them up and you should be able to say, hey, I would like to make a one-time electronic funds transfer against my checkings or my savings account, right? You can either tell them to use your checkings or your savings account number and do the electronic funds transfer, or you can just tell them you want to use your debit card and do an electronic funds transfer. Either which way, it works, right? Now, of course, that's why I'm showing you the depository insurance and all of that, because you want to make sure that, you know, anything the bank owes you, that it's actually taking care of what it's supposed to be doing. You got to make sure the bank does that. So right here is dealing with like just more definitions, you know, and things like that. Okay. Trying to save us from having to read all this other stuff that's not, because there's a lot of information here and I don't want to be reading stuff that ain't. Well, it's part of how the cards like dealing with the machines and stuff, but I'm just trying to show you the stuff like dealing with how to use your card, right? Now, documentation of transfer, availability of written documentation to consumers, content for each electronic funds transfer initiated by a consumer from an electronic terminal. The financial institution holding such consumer accounts shall directly or indirectly at the time the transfer is initiated make available to the consumer written documentation of such transfer. The documentation shall clearly set forth, to the extent applicable, the amount involved and the date the transfer is initiated, the type of transfer, right? The identity of the consumer account with the financial institution from which or to which funds are transferred, like the person you're doing business with, the identity of the third party to whom or for whom funds are transferred, and the location or the identity of the electronic terminal involved, right? Notice to the credit to consumer. For a consumer account which is scheduled to be credited by a pre-authorized electronic funds transfer from the same payer at least once in a successive 6-day period, except where the payer provides positive notice of transfer to the consumer, the financial institution shall elect to provide promptly either positive notice to the consumer when the credit is made as scheduled, or negative notice to the consumer when the credit is not made as scheduled, in accordance with the regulations of the Bureau. The means of notice elect shall be disclosed to the consumer in accordance with Section 905, right? So when you sending your stuff in, it's telling you that they're supposed to credit it in accordance with the, if somebody sends you a statement of credit and you deposit that into the bank, then the bank has to perform whatever you gave it the right to do by, like, all you gotta do is make it payable to the bank and then tell the bank to credit that account. Now the bank is liable to make the payment. Periodic statement content. A financial institution shall provide each consumer with a periodic statement for each account of such consumer that may be accessed by means of an electronic funds transfer. So everybody that you do business with pretty much give you a statement. And the reason why they're giving it to you, because they are financial institutions. We know because we pay them every month. So if you're paying them, then you know they got to be some kind of financial institution, right? That's giving you some kind of statement for each account of such consumer that may be accessed by the means of electronic funds transfer, except as provided in subsection D and E. Such statement shall be provided at least monthly for each monthly or shorter cycle in which transactions other than electronic funds transfer shall clearly set forth, one, with regards to each electronic funds transfer during the period, the information described in subsection A, which may be provided on the accompanying document. The amount of any fee or charges assessed by the financial institution during the period for electronic funds transfer or for account maintenance. The balance in the consumer's account at the beginning of the period, that's what they always give you, what they call your previous balance. So it all adds up to what it's saying, and the close of the period. And when that balance is closed before you can actually receive it, right? And the address and telephone number to be used by the financial institution for the purposes of receiving any statement inquiries or notices of account error from the consumer. Such address and telephone number shall be preceded by a caption, direct inquiries to, or similar language indicating the address and number are to be used for such inquiries or notices. Consumer passbook account. So it's basically breaking down, you know, everything on how the accounts pretty much work. So I'm gonna go past the passbook account and other account documents as evidence in any action involving a consumer. Any documentation required by this section to be given to the consumer, which indicates that an electronic funds transfer was made to another person, shall be admissible as evidence of such transfer and shall constitute prima facie proof that the transfer was made. So if you assign the statement to the bank and make it payable to the order of the bank, and you tell them to credit the same to whoever, and then you tell them make their payment by EFT, then the bank must actually make that payment to them by EFT because you gave them the authorization to do so, right? And you telling the bank you giving the bank your account information, so the bank know which account to do the EFT against. You see what I'm saying? And you telling the bank to make the payment by EFT, right? That's how this works. Pre-authorized transfer, pre-authorized